Will I ever be free of the crazy lighting in my house? No. Hi, welcome back. It's that time of the month. It's the monthly wrap-up. I read a shit ton of books this month because I was anxious and books are my escape. But also I've done some videos in which I was in a mood. I was in a very strange reading mood, and I've done some videos in which I've done challenges, reading some books. So some of these books will have a longer review on one of my videos. I'm going to link it up here. I've also a strange concoction of blue and white books. They're only blue and white. My physical books, like, extremely weird. So don't be alarmed by the sheer amount of trashy romance books that I've read. As I've said in previous videos, I really like falling asleep to, you know, easy books. Books that even if I like skip a chapter or two because I fall asleep, nothing happens to the plot. So we'll start with one of those. I read Wishful Thinking by Evangeline Anderson. This was kind of bad. So this talks about our protagonist, who is the descendant, alongside with her family and her sisters, of wish-granting fairies. So every time they have a birthday, they have to have one wish granted. Take it or leave it. All the sisters, but especially our main character, always have the worst luck with their wishes, because sometimes they'll be saying, oh, I wish, like, you know, not really making a wish to the fairy, and the fairy would be like, yeah, sure, that. So this time, our protagonist has a shitty boyfriend and a hot co-worker, and also a shitty boss, and her wish gets granted, in which she can only tells the truth to people, and, you know, shenanigans. But then the wish gets reversed and everybody has to tell the truth to her. This was a chaotic book. The author put everything she could think of in this book. We have furries, we have degenerates, we have female lingerie loving bosses, we have, you know, shitty boyfriends, and a hot co-worker who is kind of hot and also the only redeeming character in this book. We also have an annoying as fuck grandma. I hated her grandma. She was completely out of rails. So yeah, this book gets a 2 out of 5 stars. Yeah. Then I tried something easier but also kind of better. I read Cocky by Sean Ashcroft, which is a male romance with a twinge of like a sports romance. We have a sportsman who is retiring. He has an injury that he's kind of concealing, and a news reporter that gets assigned to his story. And they fall in love, and it's very sweet, very predictable. They get married at the end. They also adopt a kid. But it's sweet, and it's also sweet that it's a man writing this kind of story, you know, like an own voices novel. It's always women who write, you know, the best male romances, but still, it was cute. 3 stars. Yeah, I don't know if I put it in my last reading wrap up. I read Tempt Me by Kay Tucker because I read it on the cusp of the month. This is another romance with a Christian girl who was very Christian, and her new boss in Alaska for a chain of hotels, who is clearly not a Puritan. He really loves sex, and they engage in a purely physical relationship, but then they catch feelings. I must say, it was very meh, very boring, but 2 things stood out to me. The ending, very shocking. I was shocked. The protagonist was shocked, but I was shocked. But also the smutty scenes, like the spicier scenes, were very well constructed. I was surprised. So I think I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Oh, then I read a delightful manga. It's called Moratte kudasai by Niboshiko Arai. This is another, you know, meet cute male romance between 2 college guys. One is huge, so muscly, and the other one is stick thin, and they discover that 1, they like guys, and 2, that they like each other, and it's so sweet, so healthy. It's also kind of, you know, spicy, but in such a sweet and compelling way. I wanted like 1,000 volumes of this story between these two characters, but alas, it was a single volume, so 5 stars. Then I read volume 5 and 6 of, I have it. I read the volume 5 and 6 here in the bigger version in volume 3 of Kamisama Kiss. Wonderful, delightful, perfect. Kamisama Kiss is the series that keeps on giving. It's absolutely perfect. I would not change a thing. I am praying for volume 4. It cannot come any sooner. Then I read The Beast. 1,200 pages of words of radiance. It was so much. It was so long. I had to physically read and use the audiobook because I could not. And I finished it in a month. Yeah, I took all the month throughout to finish this book, and I loved it. It was very good. The pacing has a little bit of a problem, and Brandon Sanderson always does this. The beginning is very slow. He sections his beginnings in multiple sections that I think could be combined into one, sacrificing some pages and some scenes that are cute, but they're not relevant to the story. It's clear that he really loved writing those scenes, but I don't know, they could have written out and nothing would have changed. And then his endings are always fucking bangers. I was on the edge of my seat. Oh my god, Kaladin, whatever his name is, you need a hug. I also love Shalin, Yasna, oh my god, and also Dalinar Kholin. I have a sweet spot for Dalinar, Adolin, and the whole Kholinar family. I also think it's hilarious that their surname comes from the Vulcan word for purging your emotions from Star Trek. Love that. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I think so. Then I have a reading log for the next 3 books, so I'm going to be very brief. I did a little experiment. I wanted to read 3 fantasy romance. The first one was a dark fantasy romance. I read The Never King by, what's your name? Nikki St. Crow. It's a trashy kind of book. It's a retelling of Peter Pan. It's very smutty, very trashy, hilariously bad, but I gave it 2 stars because I like laughed aloud. It was so hilarious. The way that they were all calling him Peter Pan all throughout the book, even in the sex scenes, she would not call him Peter. It was Peter Pan. God. So yeah, 2 stars. And then I started Fidanzati dell'Inverno by Christelle Dabo. This is a French translated book, and it's, I think in English it's A Winter's Promise. This is a light fantasy romance, very whimsical, very reminiscent of the writing of House Moving Castle. Very good. Very, very good. Christelle Dabo really knows how to write. What I did not love was the kind of main love interest, but the love story is still in the earliest beginnings. Thorn, you were a thorn in my fucking ass. I hated you. I loved, however, the protagonist Ophelia. You'll know all my thoughts in the spoilery vlog. And then someone challenged me to read From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book fails at being a book. It's such a bad book. It's one of the worst things I've ever read. And I've read Jennifer L. Armentrout, okay? I've read White Hot Kiss, I've read Opal. They were so much better than this fucking book. Okay, so plot non-existent, characters stupid as shit. They had 1 single brain cell and they chose to ignore it. World building was done through info dumps after info dumps. There were like at the beginning like 20 pages of info dumps. I don't know how anyone survived that. And also there were some details that made no sense, like the fact that they're in a medieval kind of gothic atmosphere and there's champagne when there's no France, and there's also like electricity but they have pigeons to carry their messages, and it's all so confusing. But the thing that got me over the edge, it's the fact that Jennifer L. Armentrout chose to read all the rules of punctuation and chose to ignore all of fucking them. She uses ellipses instead of commas in this book. In 700 pages, she used 1,253 ellipses. That's not normal. Ellipses are not commas, they're not full stops. I don't know why. She never does this in any of her other books. What happened? 0 star. I had to give it 1 star, but 0 star. Then I read another set of 3 books. I wanted to read some sad lit fic books that were recommended to me on TikTok by you. It was so fun. So I started with Alone with You in the Ether, which was so costly. This was not cheap. Not a cheap book, but it's so beautiful. I liked it with some reservations. This is a love story, kind of, between 2 people who have severe mental health problems. One is bipolar, the other one, I think, presents all the traits of being autistic. It's hard, but it's also very poetic. The thing is, I think these characters were so interesting that I think their love story would have been so much more interesting if it was platonic, if it would have been platonic. Which means another kind of book, a different kind of book, but I mean, a painter and a theoretical mathematician, they would make the best of friends, and they will have so many more interesting conversation about what they do and what they love, because this book kind of lacked in that department. And also the writing that I really loved in the Atlas 6 in this book, I don't think was perfected enough. Some places were too flowery, bordering on cringy, so I give it 4 stars. Still very good, but not the best. And then a book that I think destroyed me. I still think about this book daily, and I still cannot remember the title of the book, so I'm going to read it out loud. So, Someday This Pain Will Be Useful to You by Peter Cameron. This is the story. Is it a story, or it's a slice of life, as I've said in my vlog, of an angry gay boy in New York City, not really knowing what to do with his life. And it talks about that, it talks about his panic attacks, it talks about his very underwhelming life and his kind of dysfunctional family. It was very interesting. At the beginning I hated it, and then I kept going and going, and I fell in love with this story. It was so real and kind of brutal, especially at the end. The ending made me bawl like a baby. Not a story that I would usually recommend, but I still really liked it. And I'm going to meet the author at the Salone del Libro di Torino, the Salto, which is one of the biggest book fest in Italy, and I'm so happy because he's presenting his new book. Then I read Normal People. Yes, me, your local conversation with friends hater, read Normal People and kind of liked it. Yeah, so much better than Conversation with Friends. Here we have actual people going through their lives. Conversation with Friends, the characters were blots of ink on the paper. These were real people, frustrating, kind of sometimes irredeemable in what they do to each other, but they were real people. What did not work for me was that the nature of their not meeting each other at the right point of life was the same exact mistake. Again and again and again, it was the same exact conversation. So I get that was the point, but it could have been done in different ways. And there's also the thing that, yeah, Sally Rooney uses her character as timepieces for what she wants to say. Like, her tweets about politics are sometimes their dialogues, and that irked me, especially because her opinions are very American-centered. And she is Irish, so I don't know what is the miscommunication there. And there's also the fact that those last 3 pages are an affront on humanity, the worst ending ever conceived, so I choose to block it out of my memory and give it 3 stars. I read Bianchi by Carlo Rovelli, who is a very famous mathematician, physicist, but also a writer here in Italy. He wrote the 7 Brief Lessons of Physics, which got translated into almost every language that exists, and won so many prizes. This is about white hole. It's the reverse of a black hole, and he explains in very simple terms and with pictures that had colors, so it was very interesting what a white hole is. I would have loved a little bit of more information because I am a woman in STEM. I'm an engineer, so I crunch physics every fucking day. So I know what I'm talking about, kind of. I do a lot of mechanical physics. He does a lot of quantum physics, but still I would have loved a little bit more. But I get that this is supposed to be accessible for all people. So I give it, I think, 4 stars. I read the second book in the Game On series by Kristen Callahan. I did not know that that was the second book, but apparently they can be read out of order. This one was bonkers. It was so bad. So bad. You go through this book thinking it's just like a friends to lovers meh book, and then at the end, in order, let's go in order. Okay, 1, he catches a node on her breast, so he thinks she has cancer just because of that, because his mother died of breast cancer, so he's really concerned. And in the wake of thinking that she has breast cancer, he fled. What? He runs away, angry at her. What the fuck? Then she gets a mammogram and they're like, yeah, you don't have cancer. You have a condition in which nodes appear when you're pregnant. Because you're pregnant. And she's like, what the actual fuck? What am I supposed to do? So he comes back, but she loses the baby. And then they get married. In the last 50 pages, all of this, not one content warning. It was harrowing to read because it was super sad when she lost the baby, okay? Not a content warning in sight. In the audiobook, at least. Oh my god, was it so bad? So bad. 1.5 star. I could not believe what I was hearing in the audiobook. I was so shocked. Then I read another bonkers thing. It's a manga this time. This is Staygold by Yoshiko. I usually love all this mangaka's work because they're beautifully drawn. This was supposed to be a male-male love story between different people in one single household. I thought it was going to be between 2 high school students, the uncle and another adult, and the other uncle who is younger and one of his childhood friends. Apparently it's between the uncle who is 25 and the high schooler who is 14, who is kind of his nephew but not in a blood related way. If I say it like that, it sounds really bad, but in this first volume, it's sad and boundaries are placed because it's a unilateral crush. This 14-year-old is crushing for a lifetime on his uncle, and his uncle is like, absolutely not. Get the fuck away from me. No, he's really sweet about it, of course, because in his eyes, it's a puppy crush. But either we get a time skip, like a considerate time skip, or you catch my drift. Then I read another manga, this time a fucking cool manga. This is Choujin X, first volume. This is by the same author of Tokyo Ghoul. This is their new work. It's so fucking cool. It's about superpowers. Apparently 1 in 1,000 people is a Choujin, so they have superpowers, but they are weird. So the protagonist gets in a kerfuffle with his friend, and they both have to inject in themselves a drug that could give them Choujin powers. And they get in effect only on the protagonist, and he becomes part jackal. This kind of skull is fused on his head permanently now. So the organization that concocted the drug really wants to get this kid. And there's also a parallel story about a little girl who finds out that she has like a particular kind of black smoke coming out of her. So she's a Choujin, and she has another Choujin on her heels that wants to kill her for reasons that are unknown, but kind of hilarious. The story, it takes a while to get into the story, but when you get there, it's so good. I cannot wait to see the story unfold. Last book, and it's a fucking cool one. It's Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. I was waiting for this book. It could not have come at any better time and place. This is if Jurassic Park was without the dinosaurs, with bigger and, you know, more dangerous creatures that spit plasma and are nuclear reactors. It's actually a very sweet story about our protagonist and his team that have to like take care of these monsters and preserve them from our actual world, because we're talking of a parallel world. And it was sweet, it was fun, it was almost all dialogues, so it was so fast. It's the best sci-fi pick-me-up of all. So yeah, I read a ton. I know, I don't know what happened. I was in a weird, silly, goofy mood. Hope you like my wrap-up. If you read any of these books, please let me know, and I don't know, maybe tell me what was your favorite read of the month, and I'll see you in the next video, but with a surprise. Wait, next video will be a reading vlog of some very special books, so be on the lookout for that. So if you want to follow me, I have my socials down below. I'm most active on TikTok, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!